Cineverb.
Hello, welcome to Cineverb, a weekly podcast discussing films in and out of the cinema. My name is Anthony Renteria.
And I'm David.
In this magnificent episode 33, we're discussing the finale that everyone's been waiting for, Fear Street Part 3, 1666, my personal favorite time period, directed and written by Lee Janik. Here's a quick synopsis. In 1666, a colonial town is gripped by a hysterical witch hunt that has deadly consequences for centuries to come, and it's up to teenagers, yes, teenagers in 1994 to finally put an end to their town's curse before it's too late. Oh God. All right. It's finally over. We've reached the climax of all climaxes. What did you think about this finale?
Oh boy, I was immediately disheartened by the horrendous accents at the beginning of this movie. Just horrible. Immediately I was like, "Oh no. Oh no. Just no." And the decision to use the same actors from the 90s period in this time period without doing that for the 70s version, which if they kept it consistent, maybe that would have made sense and wouldn't have been jarring. But then no, suddenly in 1666, we're looking at all these same actors. Also, the actors mixed from the first and second movie, all in this town in 1666 with the same names, I think, for most of them. Same names. So you're just thrust into this time period where you're very confused about who all these people are meant to be, what is going on, is this reincarnation, what are we supposed to take from this? And you're just immediately distracted by the horrible accents, and then let's say you're getting into this aesthetic. All of a sudden, I don't know how far into the movie, like an hour, it switches back to the 90s, and it says it does a big title screen flash, Fear Street 1994 Part 2. And then
Wait, does it really?
Yeah, it does. Did you miss it? Did you fall asleep?
So wouldn't that technically make this, that if it cuts back to 94,
right,
wouldn't that technically be Part 4?
Right, but no, it says Part 2.
Part 2, Part 4.
Yes, and so then you're scratching. But then once it got back to the 90s, I was immediately I was back into it, because something about those characters, the time period, I don't know, but I was like, it was a big sigh of relief. Like, oh, finally, we're back to the 90s and things can be fun again. And I was fine with it. And honestly, I think the best case scenario for this trilogy would have been if they had just done the first movie with maybe brief, little brief flashbacks to maybe the 70s and the 1600s to provide backstory, but take the last part of this third movie and just squish it together into the first movie, and it would have been way better than all three of these movies as a whole. So yeah, just a very awkward ending to this trilogy. So yeah, that's my general take.
Yeah, I agree. I think this film should have been, all three of them as one masterful cinematic tome, 6 hours long.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
Give it to me raw.
No.
No, but yeah, seriously, this film is worse than the second one.
Yep.
And I don't even know. I wish there were negative ratings, because it'd be a negative 10 out of 10. Just perfection of horribleness.
Well,
but
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
The accents were super atrocious. It was very disturbingly bad. I don't understand how anyone could be filming this with the performers and just how it's written. Like, I don't understand how you can physically see what they're performing and then think it's okay, and then think it makes sense, and then think it's reality, and then think it would play well. Like, it feels like this, like if like you have to agree with me that the 1666 portion of it feels like a play, like a high school play that's just like
Yes.
filmed, right? Okay. So that's what you
Except for
felt from this.
really really brief moments and scenes that were creepy, but yeah, most of it.
Yeah. So what you felt from this is what I felt the whole series. Like that.
Okay.
That's
All
yeah.
right. We're
But
on the same page finally.
but yeah, I guess one thing that I want to also agree with you is like I don't understand why they didn't have all the characters just show up in all three. Like, what was the point of this? And then the thing that pissed me off is that there's flashes of the main character, which is what's her name, Sarah Fear or something.
Yes.
Like, they show a different actress being her,
Yes.
and I'm like,
Yes.
what are you doing? Make up your damn
Yes.
mind.
Oh my god. That was so annoying. I was like, why? Why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense. And not just for that character. The only thing I can think of, like, to play devil's advocate, is that she was just thinking, we're supposed to think that the main character was putting herself in the position of Sarah Fear, or was like, because I don't remember what happened in the '90s version. Because I almost felt like there was like that character in the '90s had a flashback, right? Like she experienced a sudden like connection to Sarah Fear, and so she saw sort of what happened to her, and I feel like that was the only reason that the director thought to do that. Like, oh, we'll just use the same actress, because it's almost like she's experiencing what happened back then. But still very stupid and confusing to the audience.
Yeah. So yeah, all the 1666 part is atrocious. When it snaps back to the 94, it's like back to normal, which is better. Still bad in my opinion, but yeah, I mean, I don't really have a lot to say. I mean, I'm obviously gonna give this a 1 out of 10. so that's my rating. I don't know if you want to rate it. Well, before the visuals. All right, so each part has like its aesthetic, right? And then I'm like, what is the aesthetic for 1666 when there was no films?
Right.
And they just decided to just do like a clean, crisp, your generic 4K digital image, like just farm town. And I'm like, what the fuck? That makes no sense. It just bothers me that this one just looks crispy, and it just looks like they're just in a farm somewhere with their red camera.
Yeah.
I don't know, that the visuals in this one were just atrocious, just horrible. Like, all the shots I hated, the imagery, the shot design, the composition, like of all three, that they're all terrible. Like, it just feels like the easiest directing gig ever. Like, that's one thing I forgot to mention in all the other two, but the obsession with close-ups in this trilogy, I think it's just the director. I guess I just dislike her eye visually.
Interesting.
But it's just like every shot is a close-up. Just everyone talking to everyone else. It's just immediately medium to close-up shot. And it's just like I feel like there's no sense of the craft of filmmaking. Like, I don't know, just from a visual component. It's not even lazy. It's just like the easiest option. Like, they're always doing the like over the shoulder, then go into close up. Like, it's just, I don't know. It just feels like a film school project in the worst way.
Yeah,
not in an artsy way.
I feel like I don't know. I don't think like the director's like incapable of doing more interesting stuff with cinematography. I feel like it was just knowing that this is a movie for teenagers, that keeping it fast paced, it's like there's no time for like moody wide shots, and establishing shots. It's like we just got to get straight to the plot. And so yeah, I feel like that was just the thought. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I mean, for some reason, after I watched all three of these movies in a row, I gave this movie a 4 out of 10, like I gave the second one, just because I feel like the 90s part had me so relieved that the whole movie wasn't set in the 1666 that it kind of it bumped it up. Like if it was just the 1666 stuff and it was the entire movie like that, oh god, it would be lower for me. It would be like a 3 or
One.
a 3. I don't think I'd go down to a 1 or a 2 because I don't know. I reserve 1 or 2s for like movies that are just I mean, come on, like The Room or something, or like a just totally across the board incompetent just mess of a movie. So
Yeah.
I'm reserving 1 and 2 for that. So I guess I'm gonna stick with a 4 for now because I do think it kind of the last part balanced it out a little bit. So yeah, I don't know, 4, but like close to a 3.
All right. So you're giving a 4. I'm giving a 1. And that concludes our review portion of Fear Street Part 3, 1666. If you don't want to be spoiled, you can pause the podcast now. And while you do that, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review or comment on what you thought about the film or our takes on it. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, and you can email us at cineverum@yahoo.com. Also, we will spoil all 3 of the films now, so if for some reason you watch this one independently, I am praying for you. All right. So now let's finish the trilogy. I guess. What did you think about the plot twist? I guess let's start with the big revelation.
It's just boring. I just thought that was kind of boring. That okay, it's just the sheriff guy, and it was just his family that was passing it down because they found this book and then they could give them powers, and they were just using it for greed. And I'm just like, I mean, just lots of things are just kind of underwhelming about that and questionable. Like. First of all, this sheriff, doesn't seem to have any kids. So it's like, if this were the case, just certain things would be true of this family. Like, you would definitely have kids as soon as possible so that you could pass down this knowledge to them in case something happens to you. And all of a sudden, this great power that's been given to your family is lost. But yet, it just seems like he's just a single guy, like adult. And I was like, he's not thinking very smart about this, because what if something happens to him and this power gets in someone else's hands? And then I was thinking, like, yeah, would like no other family members know about this? Is it just passed down from like father to son or something? Yeah. And yeah, so yeah, the twist was just kind of like, man. And like, he doesn't do anything else with this power that he has. Like, he literally just uses it kind of just randomly to like get his brother a job as the mayor, and that's all he does, is just like really. He just wants to be a cop. Like, this is the life that he wants to lead. He just wants to be a cop in a small town, and that's it. So that was kind of weird. It's like, why would he even? That doesn't make sense.
He's a humble brag type of guy,
I guess. And and then just there's a lot about it that like you can poke holes in. Why does he pick? How does he pick the people that die, or is it random? I don't think I remember.
Oh yeah,
like,
they never say.
He says, yeah, it's just basically he says their name, and it carves it in the wall. But I don't think it's said like how he chooses those people. I think maybe it's implied that sometimes it's just people that he has a grudge against, or that people would expect would do this, or I don't even know.
Oh yeah, because the Thomas Slater from the second one was the. Yeah, I don't know. Never mind. That doesn't. I can't rationalize this movie.
And then then lots of stuff about the 1600s of the beginning of this curse doesn't make sense. Like, all right, the book was in the possession of this creepy lady who lived in a hut in the woods, and then I'm thinking, like, wouldn't the town immediately suspect her once all this stuff starts happening? Like, why would they not suspect the creepy lady that lives in a hut in the woods by herself and is known for being creepy, like they would go after her first. So that didn't make sense that they wouldn't think of her and wouldn't, like, if they were that just seems like the immediate target. Like you're going to go after that lady and think that she's the one causing all this. But no, they go after the girls because the crazy guy in town sees them kissing or something, or he's just mad because one of them doesn't go for his advances. Yeah. And they somehow believe that guy, and it kind of builds up somehow, which that whole thing was not believable at all. Like how the whole town kind of gets on board with that. I was just like, no, all these characters aren't that stupid.
Yeah, the whole vibe of the setting makes no sense. Like the kids are there, and then there's like 8 houses. yeah. Like it doesn't feel like this town is self-sufficient in any way.
No.
And then the drama and it just makes no sense. And then like the whole situation. I mean, it sounds cool, but I don't know what would have really happened in this time period if 2 women were discovered, but I don't know. It felt like this film was just kind of pleasantly using that as its... I mean, kind of like how I said in the first review, like to pull those strings and kind of tie it in thematically. Like this film, I guess, was trying to do that, but it felt very cheesy in my opinion.
Yeah, and also, if you know anything about American history, and if you somehow keep in your brain that this whole movie takes place in Ohio, like Ohio wasn't settled in 1660. Like no one was anywhere. No one was in Ohio. There were no villages of European settlers in 1666. So yeah, that's just. I mean, they're not trying to be historically accurate at all. They're just trying to, they're trying to do like the witch kind of vibe. But it doesn't make sense for the setting at all, so I don't know.
So wait a second, you're telling me they picked the year, the date?
Yep.
1666 just to have those fucking bastards. Jeez.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense. Yeah.
Oh man. But the I guess I see it in your notes here. There's that scene with the eyeless kids.
I liked it. All right, that was creepy enough. That was cool.
I think it would have been cool if they would have showed it more instead of it being kind of like the reveal that it was. And like, the preacher was, who was the preacher related to? Was he? I don't even remember.
I don't think he was. I think he was just the preacher.
And then he suddenly cut eyes out.
Only because that guy stole the book from the witch lady and chose his name randomly.
All right, so here's a big question. This can make or break this whole series if this is answered improperly. Did the preacher take out his own eyes first and then remove children's eyes, or did he remove children's eyes and then his eyes? It sounds like an easy question to answer, but in this series, nothing makes sense.
Nothing can be taken for granted. Yeah. Yeah. And then also I just noted like religious confusion, like what's going on in this universe, because I always like to think about that whenever there's like a religious aspect to a movie, supernatural kind of stuff going on. Like, all right, if the devil exists, which we're just assuming that the power in this book is coming from a demonic source, evil source in this universe, then that probably means that God exists in this universe, which means that, and obviously the God that they're all talking about in this universe is the stereotypical like Christian God. And I'm thinking like, all right, well, that means that they really are sinning, like these girls, by being homosexual, which means that the characters in this village are correct theologically and would be justified in doing something about this. And so I don't know. I always think it's kind of silly side note, but I just always think about that. Like, wait a sec, what's the morality of this universe? What's going on here? Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I just like to think about that because you can't have a. I don't know. I just feel like sometimes they have it both ways. Like, okay, like this is kind of justified in this universe. Like if we're assuming all of this is true, but they just never get into that stuff. I wish movies would be more consistent with their whenever they bring in like some kind of religious aspect. I guess we could just assume that there's a devil, but these characters are wrong about the God that exists in this universe. But this movie doesn't go that deep. So
yeah, the whole like satanic section of this film was so dumb. Like where they're like doing the prayers and doing the whatever ritual to like carve the names. It just looked so stupid to me, like with their black hats and stuff. And one scene that I especially hated, and I hope you hated as well, was when like after the kids have their eyes ripped out and the preacher, like it looks like they're in the same exact church room, chapel or whatever, where all their kids have been slaughtered and they're just sitting down like arguing what they need to do about it. And they're just like, we have to kill somebody. Who's gonna die? And they're just like screaming at each other. Like, was that just hilariously bad to you, or?
I didn't think about the fact that like the logistics of that. They probably wouldn't be comfortable in that room, sitting on those pews right after what they just discovered. But yeah. Oh my God. Kind of weird.
The way that whole scene was edited, with like just immediately cutting to their testimonies, and they're just up there, like you can just tell it's a bunch of actors who, I mean, no offense to them, like maybe they haven't had the opportunities that they want, so they're just like, their energy is like way too high for the performance. So they're just giving it their all, and they're all just like in this character that is just a bad character, and it's
the religious, the dumb religious zealot character.
Like they're just way too hammy, and I don't know, it must have been fun on set, like everyone just trying to one up each other with their just lunacy, but in the film, it comes off as hilariously bad. Like I just started laughing because it was so bad.
Yeah. Understandable.
Ooh, but I guess one part. Did you enjoy once they're back into the 90s?
Yes.
And I know the rules are breaking, but then they start using the rules as a mechanism to like trap and to capture these villains. What did you think about that whole mall sequence?
That made no sense to me at all. I was extremely confused at that point about like what the rules were, because it was the blood that they put in the guns, and the whole point is like they were mixing the blood of, who were they mixing the blood of? They were mixing the blood of the main character girl, who why? Because she has a connection, like a psychic connection with Sarah Fear, like.
Oh yeah, because it was.
I didn't understand why. Why was her blood special all of a sudden?
Oh yeah, because in the first movie it was the girl who dies and then becomes a demon. So when did the change happen to where her blood was? Holy, I don't know.
Was it because the ghost of the witch switched and just decided to target the main character, and that's why she had the vision, where she was connected to the witch. So we were supposed to take from that now she's, the curse is switched to her, and so now her blood is the one. But then even if all that makes sense to you, then it doesn't make sense afterwards, because multiple people get killed by the monsters who have nothing to do with her blood. Like the security guards, the cops that comes in, once again, characters that have nothing to do just get murdered by these monsters for no reason, even though, and then like a minute later, a character is telling another character, like, they'll walk right by you, just hold still and be quiet, and they'll walk right by you.
Literally seconds later. And those cops didn't have any blood on them.
Nope. So very confusing. Really,
and really. Do they smell the blood? Do they sense the blood?
Yeah.
I don't understand. And then how much, like what because they all have they make the blood trails. Wouldn't they all gravitate towards the same source of blood, or why are they following different trails? Like, does one like drier blood, wetter blood? I
Oh,
mean,
that's true. Like, why
I
did
mean,
they split up that way? Yeah, so they could conveniently trap them in all the different stores.
and then
Um,
if they follow the person, it's just the person as a whole because they're full of blood, or is it when they're bleeding? So like, why wouldn't they follow the person since there's technically more blood in the living person?
yeah, true.
Like,
Good
why
point.
would they follow blood trails? It just
You're
makes
just
no sense.
you're not supposed to think about it. Yeah. And then I want to mention this at this point because we didn't mention it in the other two movies, but it happens in all three movies, I'm pretty sure, where there is a struggle on the ground between a monster and a character, and it's like, oh no, they're gonna die. And then the monster gets shot in the head, perfect headshot, and then they drop and the camera focuses in the distance on the person holding the gun, and then the person drops the gun for some reason and doesn't continue to use the gun when they probably should, and then that's
Oh,
it. That literally happens
in the first one.
3 times. It happens, I think it happens twice in the first movie and once in this movie, but it
Oh
for
my
sure, I
god.
counted it, it happens, that exact scenario happens 3 times, and it's so dumb. It's so, like, in the first movie, remember that the main character steals the gun from the cop, and then
Yeah.
she uses it to do the headshot on Penny Lane, the Penny Lane monster, in the street, and then she drops the gun when that gun would have come in so much handy in the future of the movie. It would have prevented her from getting stabbed in the abdomen, even though that doesn't affect her negatively at all in the future. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I just thought that was a really bad cliche that
Yeah.
was repeated
That
in this movie.
yeah, that makes I don't God, I don't get it.
Uh,
But now we know if we ever get stabbed in the stomach, we're gonna be completely
you'll
fine.
be fine. Yeah,
Just walk it off.
walk it off, and then later it was, yeah, and then later, it's like, oh, she's getting stabbed, but then she reveals that she had a bunch of books tied to her, like
Oh
a
yeah.
like a shield. But it's like, when did she have the time to do that?
Yeah. But
When did
I,
she
I
do that?
guarantee you, if you go back and watch the film, it would have still played like the blood gush sound when she got stabbed.
Yeah, probably. And also, it wouldn't have shown at all under her clothes. It would have just
Yeah.
been, yeah.
The one thing I didn't like about all three of these films was the blood was very CGI. Like every time someone got slashed, there was like
Yeah.
obviously the real blood that, they were using on set, but then they would just had this like huge chunk of CGI blood that was just very
Mm.
excessive and it was just like splattering everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah. Yeah, it's annoying when they do that, for sure. Especially if they're doing an homage to these kind of movies. You would think they would just keep it real blood.
practical. Yeah, because
Yeah.
all those movies used practical blood. I think
Yeah.
that's what really, like the 90s and 80s and all the horror films that I've seen that are like this genre of slasher, just going for the gore freak out. I think what I haven't watched enough to enjoy many of them, but I just imagine amongst themselves, there's probably that competitiveness of like,
Yeah.
look how gory we can get in camera. Look at this costume. Look at this. We're cutting someone's brain wide open and it's still like pulsing with blood, or
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
almost like a, just like how, like, like I like Tom Cruise for his fucking stunts because he's
Yeah.
always trying to one up himself. It's like
Sure.
it's like a sport, like with the John Wick movies, they're always trying to do more with the physicality.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I feel like this film could have at least these films could have challenged themselves to be
Well,
practical. Like that would have fit the
yeah.
vibe of all three of them way better instead of the whole CGI stuff.
Well, you're in luck because they might
There's a
there
Oh
might
my
be
god.
making some sequels. The director has hinted where they will expand and expand on this story and all the wonderful time periods that they haven't explored with all the different monsters that they show, which another really annoying aspect now that while I'm thinking about it
Oh, like the
is
kid with the
okay,
bat.
yeah, they
Oh
showed a bunch of
God.
they showed us a whole series, but come on, like you have to think of these movies as like standalone movies. Like, don't show those things unless it's going to be part of the movie and you're going to show us that was just, yeah, that was annoying. And I guess I don't know if you want to talk about it now. It's just like that's why this whole thing, like, why were these movies like they could have, this would have been a much made way more sense as a TV show. And it seems like the only reason was just because it was an homage to movie genres. So she just wanted to make movies out of them. I don't know. Because it seems like Netflix probably would have even preferred if this were a TV show. Because then, she could just keep pumping out episodes. She could have made way more content, filmed more, and just pumped out a bunch of episodes that, Netflix would have liked. But she probably wanted to make these movies. But it's just like, it doesn't make sense. It makes much more sense as a TV show. If you just watched random clips, you would probably assume this was a TV show.
Yeah, I mean the intro and outro to every film.
Oh yeah,
Is
which they don't do that in these films that they're homaging. They don't do that.
Yep.
Like, so. Yeah, it was annoying to me. I wish they would have gone all the way with it being movies and just pretending like these movies are standalone movies, like that we're gonna do.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It feels like neither. It feels like it did neither of the things it wanted to do well, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then it's just gonna continue, and people are gonna love it, and some people are gonna give certain ones 7 out of 10.
Hey. No, you should read some of the. I don't know if you've read any of the reception to these, like on Rotten Tomatoes or like or like on any YouTube video trailer or Reddit. Man, like people are into these. That's why they're very popular. That's why part of why I wanted to review them. I was like, what the heck are these movies that are just like, I don't know, just being like really well reviewed, and something about them people liked because they fit into the aesthetic of how a lot of TV shows are now. But yeah, it's God, they should have just gone with that.
Yeah. So this is a TV show. I've broken my one unbreakable law. I will now be punished.
No.
In all eternity.
There are technically films, but yeah.
Oh my God, dude. And watch, what's so funny is like we kind of shut on A Quiet Place Part 2, and that's like our most popular episode. Had like 200 views out of the gate. Mm-hmm. And then watch this be like just doing numbers, and I'm shitting all over it. It's like I need to work on my selling out skills a little more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gotta sell to the fans. No, I mean, overall, it's one of those things that you just kind of think about the better version of it. That if it had just been one movie that this lady came out with out of nowhere, this director, and she would have really condensed it down into one movie that contained all these different homages to the different eras of horror, and maybe she'd have done them certain eras better than others, like the 1666, and just made it one. Maybe it could have been a longer kind of movie. Like think about like I think about the It movies, how long they were, and even if it was 2 parts, but like both of them were like 2.5 hours long. Like you could make she could have made it like a 2.5 hour long, movie, just Fear Street, and probably would have been even better received, and probably would have ended up being a better piece of work than these 3 movies.
These weren't short. Like this last one is 114 minutes. I mean, like, what is the second one? I'm looking it up. 110 minutes. Like these are all like nearly 2 hours.
Yep. But still, but what's sad about that is that still I feel like it could be easily compressed into a 2.5 hour movie.
One thing I've always wanted to do. Like, I wish there was a platform where you could edit films that exist and do like fan edits and then
Oh
publish
yeah,
them. I
yeah.
don't think that'll ever happen, but like I feel like I could edit all three of these down into like a
Yeah.
1 hour, just
Hey, people do
easy.
it. People have done it for. I know people do it for the Star Wars prequels,
Yep.
and people have done it for the Star Wars, the newest ones, the sequels. They've done fan edits for God. What's the other one that I was just thinking about that now I've lost? That people did a fan edit of. Oh God, I'm blanking. But yeah, people do it all the time. You could do the Fear Street fan edit,
Yeah,
and
I would probably end up killing myself though. It'd be painful.
oh,
And then
like this. You know what this reminds me of? Is the oh God, I'm gonna have to look it up. Uh, the director of Drive, Nicholas Winding Refn.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, he made a TV show on Amazon. I don't know if you ever
Uh,
saw that or heard about that.
I heard about it. No,
Um,
too young to die old.
shoot, too young, too old to die young. Yeah, the most
Yeah,
confusing title. Too old to die young, which I watched,
part
and
one.
it has the same flaw of this, where it's like, oh my God, this could have been such a good movie. Like, why did
Yeah,
he not make this a however long length movie? But 2 hours, 2.5 hours, like, God. And I was just the whole time I was watching it, I was just thinking about how great it would be if he had just made this a movie. And it's such a shame. It's because these streaming services, I feel like, are pulling a lot of directors into making TV shows or miniseries or whatever instead of just making a movie,
yeah,
which is a depressing trend. But
yeah.
yeah,
And that, yeah, this, yeah, the whole, and I mean like it. I don't even think there's enough. Yeah, it's just staggering. Like the amount of filmmakers who are just now TV, and I understand because like from what I like from their perspective, they're getting way more freedom creatively.
hmm
But the reality is the freedom is more of a hindrance than what they're actually perceiving as freedom. Cuz like now your cool idea has to take up like what 6 hours per season, and then
yeah,
that could extend to 5 seasons or however many. It's just like I feel like I feel like the beauty of cinema or films is the time constraint,
yeah,
is the like distillation of a story,
yeah,
where I don't think anyone's, or from what I've seen, like made that perfect TV series version of it. Like I wish series had like a total runtime,
I'll
like
say
the whole series, like not just like every season, but like I wish there was a cap. Like, all
a
right,
limit. Yeah, yeah, that'd be cool. The only exception I'll give is the Twin Peaks: The Return to David Lynch, because I'm such a David Lynch fan. But I really feel like that's like the best I've seen of a movie director making a. I mean, he made Twin. I mean, he was a TV director with Twin
yeah,
Peaks, the original. But it's like, God, that's such a good. That it deserved like whatever, how many 10 hours or however much it was.
yeah. You know what's
But
funny though is that this Fear Street thing was created just like how I say is probably the biggest fault of TV shows, where like each episode is written by other people or different directors, or like the creative team is always like shifting and changing.
hmm
And this was all Lee Janik,
right,
and it was directed all three back to back, written all three before they started filming. Like it ticks all the boxes that I think would have made it better, and it's not. So I don't know what to do. The
can we?
world, the world, the world is damaged.
Damn. I guess the only other thing I wanted to talk about was like the weirdness of like the audience that this is supposed to be for, because because of the things we've already talked about, it's like not really for teens, or like not really for like young teens. I don't know. I don't know. It just didn't come across as a movie for teenagers like
Yeah,
other shows do specifically. Like this, it seemed like this was for older people,
yeah,
but it was clearly a teen movie. So I don't know, that it just, watching this made me think a lot about like the weirdness of that, and then also like I told you before we recorded, like just the weirdness of a lot of things like that, like Stranger Things, where most of its audience seems to be millennials or like older, like people in their like 20s and 30s. Like
Yeah.
cuz otherwise they wouldn't get any nostalgia from it. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so, and then the Marvel movies being this huge thing that just continues, even though you would think these movies are made for kids mainly, but mainly the fans are adults. And it's just like there's a weird thing going on, I feel like, with movies and TV shows, and like pandering to different, this weird generation that's kind of like our generation, I guess, that's like stuck in their in this age, the 20s and 30s, but are kind of, because of whatever, you could get really deep with it, because of the economics of our time, or whatever,
Yeah.
kind of like not, don't really feel like adults, but aren't adolescents anymore. And so it's just, I just think it's an interesting trend to notice that there's all these things coming out that are that are like, wait a second, who is this for? I just feel like it used to be a lot clearer. Like, you back in the 2000s, like teen movies were clearly teen, or the 90s. Teen movies were teen movies, adult movies were adult movies. There's not much in between. But now it's like it seems like there's more stuff that's like weirdly in between. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
It maybe it's like a desperation of our generation. Like, why I think this is probably more related to like the internet expansion that our
Mm-hmm.
generation kind of experienced a lot. And it's like, why pick a time period? Well, why be in a time period when you can pick any time period? Like, I
Yeah.
know people that are nostalgic for like 50s stuff or like
Mm-hmm.
60s stuff, or even like nostalgic for like way like things that like historians, like whatever they're jazzed about. And I feel like just with our generation, there's so much available to us that, like, you can be in any niche. You can be a 90s fan even though you were like literally born in the 90s, so you technically never experienced the
Yeah.
90s.
Yeah.
And then you could be a fan of the 80s, and you weren't even born in the 80s or the
Right.
70s or the 60s, and like that could be all you listen to, that could be all you watch, that could be all you consume. And then like these, well, specifically like Netflix, they probably see the data
Oh
showing
yeah.
like people love 90s stuff, and they didn't even experience the 90s. It's just the perception of it. It reminds me of what the fuck is it called? It's Midnight in Paris. Well, just the idea that film kind of covers, which is like you're always wanting to be in a different time period other than your own or whatever. Like, you're
Oh
always
yeah.
nostalgic about. I forgot. There's a word for the feeling that people have. I forgot what it's called, but the main character in that film feels that, like, for whatever the uh, Ernest Hemingway's time period was. And yeah, I feel like that's probably happening in our generation, and that's why everything is kind of nostalgia fueled. It all has to be fueled through like some other time period, because what is our time period? Like,
Yeah.
what are the
It
films of our generation? And like, I don't really know. Like,
I
even
think,
go ahead.
like, it's definitely just postmodernism. I feel like it's just that we feel like we're at the end of history. Like, I'm gonna say, I like to just think about like post 9/11, kind of like that as a dividing point. Is just like, it just kind of feels like with the internet and rise of internet culture and all that stuff, it's like, like you said, we can experience any time period, so we don't really feel like necessarily attached to our time period. And also just culture in general is becoming so much more fractioned, fractionalized,
Yeah.
fractured, because with all these tiny, you can be in these little sub niches that nobody else knows about, but that are really big and on the internet, or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah, and it's kind of a sadness, because it's like, also just the global culture is getting more and more similar to each other. So they're just a corporate kind of, very vague, bland Western culture just spreading over the whole earth. So
Yeah.
there's like a desperation to it, I feel like, where just
Yeah.
any nostalgia, even for like you said, time periods that we never experienced, if it gives us that feeling of like being in a simpler time, then we'll take it. It's
Yeah.
comforting. Yeah.
That's interesting. I feel like I kind of feel this not for time periods, but just how you mentioned Western culture kind of like triggered in my brain. Like, out of all the cultures, I think the one I would want to be the part of the least is Western culture. And I don't
Yeah.
know if that's because I'm born and experiencing it from this perspective. And like maybe, Eastern cultures or other nationalities or whatever, maybe they see us differently. I don't know. It's interesting how you always want to be something you're not, I guess, is
Yeah.
the the fact of our generation is everyone is desperately trying to be real, but then also hiding behind a falsity, whether that's, you know, like a time period or a
Oh
culture
God.
or, you know,
That makes me think about this movie too. Yeah, that's the weirdness of it a little bit, is that it's in a lot of ways it's trying to be very authentic, I feel like, at least with the
yeah,
dialogue and the and but then at the same time it's very artificial with the nostalgia and the
yes.
yeah, so it's like this weird mix of like attempted authenticity and nostalgia. Yeah.
What if this was
That's
made by an AI? Would you be scared?
Oh God, I would be scared. Yeah, if I
What if
learned
this
that,
was
for
created
sure.
through your like Snapchat algorithm of
I would be
preferences and that's why you
I
like it?
oh, I yeah. I wouldn't even put that past in the future of Netflix. Just like
Oh,
that,
dude.
they are their data. We don't even know how specific their data is and how much their decisions on what they're making and what they're producing is based on that data. It's like kind of scary, because they could be more and more. It's like coming out with stuff that just seems right to people, like, and they just enjoy it, but they don't really know why they enjoy it. But then
Yeah.
when you sit down and dissect it, you're like, wow, that was stupid. Like that was stupid, whatever. But you
Yeah.
still enjoyed it,
You
and
still consumed it
you
primarily.
consumed it.
Yeah.
Yep, and that's all that matters. Yeah.
Oh, man. It's something I hate about Netflix, and it's very minor, but for some reason, this is the thing that really. There's two things that piss me off. This is like the more minimal one, but it's the one that annoys me the most. Is every time I log in, all the little squares with the movie posters and stuff. They always change. Like every time I log in, it's like inside Bo Burnham's inside, but it's like every time it's a different picture, and it's pictures of him
Yeah.
that aren't in the special,
Yeah.
and I don't know why. That just makes me just furious. Like I hate the
Huh.
idea. Like I remember when I watched The Irishman, the initial poster was the original one, and then the next time I logged in, it was like on the little recommendation thing, and it was just like a picture of Robert De Niro, just like in some random scene, just like a
Yeah.
close up of him. It didn't
Oh,
even.
they're. I mean,
Yeah,
but why they're doing it. I mean, it's like they're yeah,
they're
they're like
testing what
yeah,
works.
constantly doing randomized tests to see what works. And I don't know if this is true. I don't know if there's any truth to this, but I remember seeing a TikTok a while ago where it was a guy. It was a black guy scrolling through his. I don't know if it was Netflix or like Apple TV or something, one of those big services, and he was pointing out how like all the movies, like he started noticing that on his account, all the movies, if there was a black character in the movie, that would be the picture that they would show, even if it was a really minor character. Like like he's scrolling through and he's like, look, like this movie that has like all white cast except for like one character, let's say, that's black. That was the poster. Like that was what they were showing on his account. And he was just
Oh my
scrolling down through
god.
all these movies where it just didn't make sense. Like it just didn't make sense that these were the pictures that they were showing, except that they were just trying to pander to the specific demographics of every
Wow.
user, and that, yeah, it's kind of creepy. It's very creepy that they're doing stuff like that.
Oh my god, man. Now
Yeah.
now I'm gonna look at my squares and see what I can find out about myself.
About yourself, yeah. It's like a looking glass, like, yeah.
Oh, that's horrifying. Wow. But yeah, the thing that pisses me off more than all that logical stuff is the art side of it, which is I hate the idea that there's not an official poster for a Netflix movie. Like, well, I feel like this for a lot of movies. I feel like the only ones that do what I want to do is like albums. Like album covers are eternal. Like,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
it's the first initial cover is forever, and I feel
Right.
like that gives so much power to that piece when it's that image is forever tied to those collections of songs. I don't know why movies don't do it. Books are the absolute worst. It's
Yeah.
like Stephen King gets new covers like every day apparently. Like all his books just get new covers every day, and it just makes me like just I don't know. I can't even put it into words. It breaks my heart. Because like there'll never be an image, even though I don't like these films. If there like I wish there was an image that I could be like, oh yeah, that's Fear Street.
That's
the
it.
trilogy,
Yeah. Oh, yes. I am completely agree with you. That bothers me. There's no reason they couldn't do it with albums. Like that.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they do it with albums?
And it works.
But it works,
like
yeah.
you can wear a T-shirt of any album, and it becomes like that becomes the brand of that album. It becomes
Right.
like a marketing tool, and I feel like that has way more power than just wearing a close-up shot of Robert De Niro. Like if The Irishman had an image that was just whatever. I feel like it's way more powerful than what they're doing now. It's just making everything meaningless and just lifeless.
Yeah. And sometimes they come out with really cool like movie posters, but then like you said, they ruin it by then just having a bunch of different movie posters, and it's like,
Yep.
whoa, you had a good one, like just stick with that. That could be the iconic one.
Yeah. Like if I ever make it in Hollywood, that's like my number one thing. Like I will not release my film on Netflix unless it has the same fucking picture. I don't care the demographics.
Yeah, that is it. That is the picture.
Yeah.
It's like any part of the movie. Like that's the movie is eternal. Like it's like the title screen or the music or whatever. Yeah, just the cover, the poster should be the poster.
Exactly. I'll start a GoFundMe. All right. Do you have any other, I guess, big points to talk about? I felt like we talked about our theories of psychology more than
yeah. That's just fine. No, I don't have anything else.
All right. So thank you for listening to this episode of Cineverm. It was very special. It was our first trilogy. It was amazing. We hope you enjoyed it. And we would be grateful and humbled if you could leave us a review with your thoughts or comments. And if you could share us with your friends or family, as that helps us in our journey to spread the love of cinema. And we'll see you next week with Suicide Squad.
Yep. See ya.
Cineverse.